Hello and welcome to Arts 24. Today's guest is one of the kings of Nordic Noir. Ragnar Jónasson is the best-selling author of the Dark Iceland series. He's sold 4 million books in 36 different territories. His latest novel is a collaboration with none other than Iceland's Prime Minister Katrín Jakobsdóttir. Reykjavik centers around a cold case involving a missing teenage girl. Ragnar Jónasson, thank you so much for being here to tell us about it. Without giving anything away, of course, can you just talk a little bit more about the premise of this book?
Yes, so it starts in 1956 when a girl goes missing on the small island of Viðey, which is just off the coast of Reykjavik, a real place. And then we move forward 30 years. So the biggest part of the book takes place in 1986 when a young journalist starts looking into this old case. And he finds some clues that really put him on the track to find the missing girl. And 1986 was a big year for Reykjavik. I mean, it was the year when Reykjavik was celebrating its 200th anniversary. So there was fantastic big celebrations downtown in the summer. And in October, we had the summit of Reagan and Gorbachev, which really put Reykjavik on the map. So the story really takes place in between these two big events in our history.
Yeah, it's a rich backdrop for the book. There's a lot going on. To get sort of a feel for it, we've asked you to read a passage, if you could. This is from the chapter at the very beginning of the book, and it takes place just after the girl goes missing.
Yes. Reaching the jetty ahead of the boat, he stood and waited. The sun was breaking free of the clouds now, and the blustery wind that had greeted him was dying down to a gentle breeze. He gazed out across the bay, feeling a faint regret, after all, for the hat that had been snatched away. His thoughts returned to the missing girl. She was probably holed up safe somewhere, and her parents were making a fuss about nothing. It occurred to him that he didn't know what she looked like. He would have to ask for a photograph of her if she didn't turn up. Yes, more likely than not, she would be found safe and sound, and this would be his last trip to Viðey for the foreseeable future. But as the old fishing smack came to rest against the jetty, Christian had a powerful intuition that the case was far from closed.
That intuition, of course, would turn out to be correct. Now, you co-authored this book with Iceland's current Prime Minister, who's a huge fan and a scholar of crime fiction. She's also an old friend of yours. Can you talk about your relationship and about this collaboration?
Yes, so we met at the beginning of 2020 just to have lunch, as we usually do. And then I suggested to her that maybe we should do a book together, because we had sort of joked about it often. And we both knew that she wanted to write. And I pitched her this premise of a missing girl on this island, and that it would take place in the 1980s. And she said yes. And then it took us 2 years to finish the book, working in collaboration, really. I mean, it was written pretty much 50-50. And we created the plot together, and we had a lot of fun with it. And I've sometimes said that, this collaboration, I think, showed Katrín that she might want to become a writer after her political career, and it showed me that I will definitely do not want to become a politician after writing.
Yeah, I think from the outside, you definitely have the more exciting job, the fun job of the two. Now, the novel is dedicated to Agatha Christie for inspiring both of your shared love of detective stories. And you yourself have said that you learned to write mysteries in part because you translated Agatha Christie's work.
Yeah, so I was reading Christie when I was just a boy. These were the first sort of crime novels and the first English books that I read. And when I was 17, I had this crazy idea that I could actually translate one book, and I had my mother drive me to the publisher of Agatha Christie in Iceland and asked them, would you let me, a teenager, translate a book? And incredibly, they said yes. And so I did that for more than 10 years. So that was my hobby when I was in school and when I was working before I started writing my own books. And translating Agatha Christie really, gives you a sense for the structure of a crime novel. And so she was my greatest teacher in writing, really.
Yeah, it seems incredible that in Iceland they just let a teenager translate the book.
It is.
That seems kind of reflective of a special literary culture there because, in some countries a head of state writing a novel while they're still in office might be frowned upon. People might say, where did they get the time? But the response in Iceland, it seems, has been positive. Is that just because literature has such a special place in the culture?
I think it is because literature is very much in our DNA, and we had so our cultural heritage is storytelling. I mean, we had the Icelandic sagas, the old Viking stories, being written, hundreds of years ago, and still preserved in the original manuscripts, and this is the heritage we have from these, from the first centuries of Iceland, and we still have it. We still cherish it. We can still read it. The language hasn't changed a lot. So for every Icelander, I think writing a book is almost a dream, and to see the Prime Minister write a book was really, for everyone, it was just like a very natural thing. No one was surprised, really.
Yeah, I read that 1 in 10 Icelanders write a book, so it seems like a dream that a lot of them fulfill. You also co-founded the Reykjavik International Crime Writing Festival, Iceland Noir. This year, there are going to be 2 politicians in attendance, Icelandic Prime Minister Katrín Jakobsdóttir, of course, but also the former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. She co-wrote a thriller with Canadian mystery writer Louise Penny. It turns out a lot of politicians have a passion for thrillers. Why do you think that is? Where's the connection there?
That's a very good question. I think maybe it is just because of the stressful nature of the politician's job. And Katrín has really said that this really, basically saved her from her stressful days, to be able to sit down after a long day, or on an airplane on the way back home, or whatever, any sort of moment she could find, and just write. And she has said repeatedly that she thinks, all politicians and basically everyone, should try and find their creative side, because it gives you a lot. It's there is something, in creating, whether you create something to be published or just for yourself. It's pretty magical.
Yeah, it's important to have a creative outlet. There's also a really well-documented relationship between crime thrillers and Iceland. The country has the world's highest density of crime authors. Now, last year, France 24 visited Iceland and spoke to another one of those writers, Lilja Sigurdardóttir. This is what she had to say about it.
We have a very, very low murder rate, but we have quite a high rate of other sorts of crime. A lot of economic crime, a lot of sexual violence, like epidemic proportions. And Iceland might, look very nice and perfect from the outside, but there is a very dark underside here, like everywhere else. In the Nordic Noir, in general, there's not a big belief in evil. It's more a belief in social problems that create crime.
Ragnar Jónasson, would you agree with that assessment that Nordic Noir really stems from social problems rather than individual villains?
I think the tradition of Nordic Noir and Scandinavian crime fiction is very much social. There is a social element to the stories, and the authors feel that they, in a way, really need to be tackling social problems. And in this book, we are doing that to an extent. But the Nordic Noir stories are as diverse as the authors are many. So, for me, I get a lot of inspiration, as you said, from Agatha Christie and Katrín as well. So our story is a little bit, maybe a merger between the Nordic Noir and the English traditional, Golden Age mystery. But but they are, very different, thankfully.
And you also have a number of TV and film projects in the works. The Dark Iceland series was acquired by Warner Brothers. It's going to be adapted to television. CBS is adapting The Darkness from your Hidden Iceland series. And then your novel Outside is being adapted to film by the production company of Ridley Scott. What is it like for you watching your works kind of take life on the screen?
It's just really like a dream. It is so incredible and a privilege to imagine that some of these stories might find their way to the cinema or to the television, and thankfully some of them are quite almost getting there. So it's really very exciting, and it's a completely different world from writing, but it's also magic in its own way, and you have to just give your projects away, your creations to the film or television people, and let them do their work and see what happens. But I'm very, very excited, and I hope I hope The Darkness would be the first one maybe to hit the screens.
Yeah, I'm excited for them as well. And we ask all of our guests for another cultural recommendation to share. You're going to tell us about one of your friends who's one of the world's leading pianists and also someone else that you have collaborated with.
Yes, so that's my friend Víkingur Ólafsson. He is really Iceland's leading pianist and one of the world's leading pianists. And we've been friends for a long time. And he, a few years ago, we wrote a short story together. There was a crime story with focus on music. So that was really my first collaboration. And that maybe was the reason I then approached the Prime Minister, because I saw, it could be fun to work with someone else. And which it was. It was great to work with Víkingur. It was great to work with Katrín. It gives you something new and something exciting to think about when you're creating. But Víkingur is, he's fantastic. He's releasing his album this week with Bach's Goldberg Variations, and I've listened to it, and it's incredible. So I hope everyone is able to hear Víkingur play.
Great. So much creativity coming out of Iceland. We'll be excited for your next collaboration. Who knows what that will be. We'll end with a listen to your friend Víkingur Ólafsson. Ragnar Jónasson, thank you again so much for being here. A reminder that you can find his latest book, Reykjavik, written alongside Iceland's Prime Minister, in bookstores in 14 different countries, including France, the UK, and the United States. Thank you so much for watching. There is news coming up on France 24 after this.